By now a directive had come from the Empyrean echelons of the BBC. The new, more dangerous stories we were doing required me to go on something called a hostile environments course. I'd heard tell of these courses. They were whispered about in BBC corridors. Have you done the hostile environments? The way they said it, it was a little like people who've taken magic mushrooms or bungee jumped. A feeling that you were in on something, a certain rite of passage requiring reserves of bravery. Another analogy that springs to mind is the Agatha Christie play The Mousetrap. Like The Mousetrap, part of the mystery of the hostile environments course was that it entailed a twisty ending that those who'd taken the course were pledged not to reveal. I had by now done enough years at the BBC to treat diktats about safety and procedure with a certain level of skepticism. One of the discoveries when I first began working in television was the risk assessment form. I remember reading one that said, "Hazard, presenter may be doing some driving. Proposed solution, we'll stick to speed limit and drive carefully." Undoubtedly they served a purpose some of the time, but a lot of it seemed disconnected from the reality on the ground. Of course we would drive safely. Did we really need to worry about a visit to a lawfully accredited gun range, of which there are thousands operating safely across America? And as to the real possibility of risk, who honestly knew what would happen at the white supremacist compound or riding around Jackson, Mississippi with a pimp? Hazard, pimp may attempt to turn me out. Proposed solution, shake my moneymaker and stay on that grind until daddy is happy. The hostile environments course took place in April 2008. The closest thing I can compare it to is a school trip or possibly a not-that-fun stag do. There were 15 or 20 of us, BBC staff from all over the organisation, news reporters, fixers on Foreign Bureau, World Service producers, bunking up for 2 or 3 nights in an annex on the grounds of a shabby old stately home somewhere outside London. In charge of the course were 2 ex-army instructors, one specialising in security and danger, the other covering medical know-how. The days were divided between classwork, reminiscent of school with whiteboards and group discussions, and field exercises. One outing involved using a twig to pick your way out of a minefield, another navigating around the grounds with a compass and an ordnance survey map. There was also quite a lot of running into darkened rooms, finding badly injured plastic dummies and shouting, "He doesn't look good, I'm checking airways, I'm putting him in a recovery position, panda eyes, elevate his leg." The instructors had little pumps that squirted blood from the dummy's arms and legs. Ooh, nasty. Tourniquet that. The medical stuff was useful. The war zone stuff was less immediately relevant for me, not many mines or ordnance survey maps in Philadelphia. Very occasionally I had the sense the instructors might prefer it if we didn't make any programs on location, but stayed in our hotel rooms, memorizing our acronyms. But I'm being a little unfair, and in fact, in subsequent years, after doing stories in Lagos and the West Bank, I had cause to think back to what I'd learned and find it helpful. Probably the most memorable bit of instruction had to do with dealing with roadblocks. That you should resist the urge to be overly accommodating. Don't roll down your window unless asked, and even then, only a crack. If possible, don't let them into your car. Present polite resistance at every stage. It sounded in some ways counterintuitive. I'd always made it a habit to placate and appease police. Yes, officer. No, officer. I'm so sorry, officer. But in fact, every act of power involves a kind of negotiation. By giving a little, you're inviting more trespasses, putting yourself in more danger. It occurred to me that the roadblock and the car was a metaphor for power in general, how bullies and predators depend on us to cede authority to them, and that those without power should never forget how much it is still up to us to fight back, to not give in. In the words of the French philosopher Jean Baudrillard, power is a seduction. Even violent force depends on a kind of giving in. I can't find that quote on Google, which means I may have made it up. However, it is true. The last day of the course, a kind of grand finale, took place a couple of weeks later. It was an ambitious, fully realized role-play event in a fictitious country with its own currency and a made-up recent history. There were rebels and government forces, and we were issued little cameras. The idea was to get in and do some reporting, record a piece to camera, and get out. In childhood, I'd played a little Dungeons and Dragons and had an unfulfilled yen to do LARPing, live-action roleplay, as a knight with a foam sword going round a castle, with people dressed as orcs lying in wait. The last day of the hostile environments course was the closest I ever came to this dream. The event required quite a bit of staging and support personnel. Some of the extras were local soldiers for whom I can only imagine the whole exercise was a welcome change of routine. At least one or two had gone method in their approach to the performance, smelling of booze and shouting in an authentically deranged way, "Wind your fucking window down and show me your papers! You're in the Republic of Raristan and we don't take any shit, alright?" The final exercise involved being pulled over at a roadblock, bundled out, and having sacks put over our heads. This, being taken as a hostage, was the mousetrap twist. The act of being blinded and frog-marched and shouted at, though you knew it to be fake, was surprisingly disconcerting. You had to stumble a little way from the vehicle, then, with the sack removed, try to plead for your life. The lesson, I recall, was to not stop talking, don't look away or submit, maintain eye contact, keep being a human to your captors and not someone ready for death. "I have children waiting for me. Their mother is dead. They depend on me. I have a picture in my wallet. Please, do you have any children?" And so on.